I'm Tariq Melrose, and today's performance from our elected officials reminded me of a group project where no one read the assignment. Muddled facts, empty phrases, and just enough feigned outrage to make it look sincere. But here's the thing. I did read the assignment, and I'm here to explain what they didn't. Subscribe now and follow along, because once we separate the noise from the news, you'll see just how loud the silence really is. When Republicans say they care about women's sports, what they really mean is they want to erase trans people's rights. Welcome to The Clip, where we cut through the culture war smokescreens and expose how the GOP uses fear to push discrimination.
Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of two daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this and I say, why? And at first I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed, and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T, so what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage, that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women...
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
What I can say is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
The rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes-no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context context of the
Is that a yes?
conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is
but
that
I
a
also
yes?
think
So I'm
that when
trying to
we're-
get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech.
I'm
Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're
which
not
is
answering
different
that.
than
Let me ask
gender.
you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex
My
is different
question,
than gender.
why
and I
do-
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports
sports
have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I
determine
would
that
like to enter into
related
the
to
record an
participation.
article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues,
Welcome to Tariq Melrose Vlogs, the place where we dismantle right-wing talking points, drag hypocrisy into the daylight, and stand firmly on the side of truth, dignity, and progress. If you're tired of seeing Republicans weaponize fear and misinformation to attack LGBTQ+ communities, hit that subscribe button. Let's break this down. So here we go again. Another Senate hearing, another crocodile tear from Senator Ted Cruz. This time, he wants us to believe that Democrats are trying to destroy girls' and women's sports. Why? Because they refuse to join the GOP's transphobic crusade disguised as concern for fairness in athletics. Let's get one thing straight. Title IX is a civil rights law. It wasn't designed to be a political football for Republicans to kick around when they need to rally their base. It was meant to create equity, to ensure girls and women got a fair shot at sports, scholarships, and opportunity. Now, the GOP wants to use Title IX as a weapon against trans girls, against inclusion, against human dignity. Senator Cruz, in his classic performative style, pats himself on the back for supporting women's sports while simultaneously endorsing policies that harm women, especially trans women. You can't claim to defend women while erasing and demonizing some of the most marginalized among them. That's not advocacy. That's bigotry with a PR team. Let's talk about Riley Gaines, the former swimmer Cruz paraded as a victim of leftist aggression. Yes, she's a talented athlete, but being a talented athlete doesn't make you an expert in biology, civil rights, or the complexities of gender identity. What happened during that trophy tie? A PR decision about photos, not a policy, not a scandal, and certainly not a civil rights crisis. But the GOP spun it into a narrative of persecution because they thrive on outrage. They need it. The problem is, Republicans don't want nuance. They don't want to understand that trans women face unimaginable challenges just to exist, never mind to compete. They ignore the medical standards, hormone regulations, and NCAA guidelines that have been in place for years to ensure fair play. Instead, they cherry-pick anecdotes and weaponize emotion. When asked if there's a difference between men and women, the GOP turns that into a gotcha moment. They don't want a real answer. They want a headline, because the real answer is complicated. Biological sex and gender identity are not interchangeable. Trans athletes aren't showing up out of nowhere and dominating. They are regulated, they are monitored, and they often face overwhelming social backlash, harassment,
and exclusion. But none of that matters to Cruz and his crowd. Their goal isn't fairness, it's fear. And can we stop pretending the GOP is the party of women's empowerment? This is the same party that overturned Roe v. Wade, the same party that wants to defund public education, deny maternity leave, and roll back protections for survivors of sexual violence. You don't get to claim you care about young girls when you're actively making their futures more dangerous and less free. Senator Cruz brought up throat sizes. Seriously, that was his scientific contribution to this debate. Throat size. It's laughable, except it's not funny when policies are being written based on this junk pseudoscience. It's offensive to reduce an athlete's success to the width of their windpipe while ignoring years of training, sacrifice, and perseverance. If size determined everything, Shaquille O'Neal would be the greatest swimmer of all time. And then comes the tired cherry-pick stat from Duke Law about how elite high school boys can outrun top female athletes. But what they never mention is that sports aren't just about raw physical data. They're about passion, discipline, access to resources, coaching, and yes, inclusion. The GOP wants a world where little girls learn that if they don't fit into rigid boxes of gender, they're not welcome. Democrats aren't trying to destroy women's sports. They're trying to protect all women. That includes cisgender women. That includes trans women. That includes girls who may not even know how to define their identity yet, but who deserve to run, swim, and play without being legislated out of existence. Inclusion is not erasure, it's justice. It's also important to mention the real threats to women's sports are lack of funding, abuse scandals, and institutional sexism, not trans teens. Where are Cruz's hearings about that? Where is his outrage when female athletes are sexually abused by doctors, exploited by sponsors, or denied fair pay? Crickets. Because that doesn't rile up his base. That doesn't fit the narrative. And let's not pretend this is isolated. The GOP's trans panic is part of a broader agenda to roll back civil rights across the board. Anti-trans bills are sweeping the country. Book bans are targeting LGBTQ+ stories. Teachers are being silenced. This is about control, not fairness. About erasure, not protection. We see the same tactics every time the right wants to strip rights away. They say they're protecting tradition, they say they're protecting children, but they're always punching down, always targeting the already marginalized, and always refusing to engage with the complexity of real life. Senator Padilla and others on the left should be applauded for pushing back, for reminding us that diversity and inclusion are not threats, they are strengths, and for showing that Democrats are the only party still willing to fight for every American's right to belong. To every young athlete watching this, you matter. You are not a political prop. You deserve a future where your effort is celebrated, not erased. And to every trans kid feeling scared or unseen, we see you, we believe in you, and we will never stop fighting for your place on the field, in the pool, and in this country. Thanks for watching Tariq Melrose Vlogs. If you believe in science, compassion, and equality for all athletes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't about trophies, it's about truth. And on this channel, truth always wins. Stay bold, stay loud, and stay unapologetically you.